Here are the top stories for today, September 10, 2021. Recalibrating response. The IATF provisionally approves the guidelines on the pilot implementation of alert level systems ahead of possible shift to granular lockdowns in Metro Manila. More doses of hopes. The Philippines gets another 502,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine. Majority of the vaccines will be administered to economic frontliners. Authorities seize over 1.5 billion worth of shabu in Cavite, just days after this year's biggest drug haul so far, amounting to over 4 billion pesos in Central Luzon. And Typhoon Julina leaves over 280 million pesos worth of damage to infrastructure and agriculture after drenching parts of Luzon and the Visayas. Good day, I'm Marita Muaje. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. The Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases has provisionally approved the guidelines on the pilot implementation of granular lockdowns in Metro Manila. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the COVID-19 policy shift would only impose either the strictest enhanced community quarantine or ECQ or the more relaxed general community quarantine or GCQ. He also said the localized lockdown that will be pilot tested in Metro Manila will have 4 levels.
Inaprubahan po provisionally ng inyong IATF ang guidelines on the pilot implementation of the alert level system for COVID-19 response in the National Capital Region. Ito po ay aprobado bilang isang pilot o pagsubok lamang. Ano ba ho ibig sabihin itong implementation ng alert level system for COVID-19? Unang-una po, dalawa na lang po ang classification natin. Yung kapag ECQ, yan po ay ipapataw po ng IATF. Pero kung hindi po ECQ, ang classification po GCQ. Pero ang pagkakaiba po niyan, hindi po yan GCQ na alam na natin kung paano mapapatupad. Ang GCQ po ito ay nakabase po doon sa alert level na nakapataw sa iba't ibang syudad at munisipyo.
Roque said that with the implementation of stricter granular lockdowns, the health and allied health professionals are the only ones who will be considered authorized persons outside residence or APOR. Government workers in lockdown areas will also be prohibited from going out.
Ngayon, ang pwedeng dalang po maglabas-pasok ay yung mga medical and allied medical professionals. Pangalawa po, yung mga bumabalik na mga OFW o yung mga aalis na OFW at syempre po, yung merong mga emergency. Magbibigay na po ng ayuda ang lokal na pamahalaan at ang DSWD para hindi na po kinakailangan lumabas ng kahit sino sa mga lugar na naka-granular lockdown.
The government and the private sector ramp up on vaccinating more Filipinos with the arrival of over 2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines today. This morning, a total of 502,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine arrived at the NAIA Terminal 1. The jobs are procured by the private sector through Go Negosyo. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. along with Go Negosyo Representative Josephine Romero welcomed the arrival of the AstraZeneca vaccines. Galvez said 80% of the jobs will be given to economic frontliners through LGUs, while 20% will be used by the private sector. He said negotiations of another 20 million doses for 2022 supply of the private sector are underway. Meanwhile, another batch of Sinovac vaccines procured by the national government arrived this afternoon. The 1.5 million doses of the jobs is expected to fast-track the inoculation of more Filipinos. FDA Director General earlier said that the breakthrough infection and the death among the 6.87 million Filipinos inoculated with Sinovac is very low. The Metro Manila Council has asked the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases to consider easing restrictions for fully vaccinated individuals. In a statement, MMDA Chair Ben-Hur Abalos said that easing restrictions for fully vaccinated individuals in the region would help the government's campaign to inoculate the rest of the population. He said the move will also gradually boost up the economy, particularly industries and services greatly hit by the pandemic. To date, around 56% of the NCR's eligible population have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19, while 81.21% have received their first jab. Abalos said they're expecting to reach almost 80% of the total eligible population in the metro to be fully vaccinated by next month. Only 242 out of 13.9 million fully vaccinated Filipinos contract COVID-19. Food and Drug Administration Director General Eric Domingo emphasized that the benefits of vaccination outweigh the risks and that vaccines are effective and critical tools to control the pandemic.
We say that the benefits of the vaccination outweigh the risks and talagang the vaccines are effective and critical to controlling the COVID-19 pandemic.
Germany's top health experts said vaccinated people are 10 times less likely to be hospitalized with COVID-19 than those who are unvaccinated. Professor Lothar Weiler of the Robert Koch Institute said vaccines continue to offer strong protection against COVID-19 despite the emergence of new variants such as the Delta strain. He said their study found that vaccinations prevented at least 38,000 deaths and 77,000 hospitalizations in Germany between January and July this year. Weiler called on people who are still undecided to get vaccinated against COVID-19 without delay, saying Germany may face a big resurgence in the fall and winter if it fails to meet its vaccination target in the coming weeks. Iloilo City rolls out its door-to-door COVID-19 vaccination drive to reach out to a more eligible population. Jack Conlu, spokesperson for the Iloilo City COVID team, said they are adding this strategy because they wanted to reach herd immunity before the end of the year or by early next year. He said they have no specific target sector or number for this strategy but will just serve those who are willing to be inoculated. In addition, Iloilo City opened 2 big vaccination sites at the Iloilo Convention Center and at the Central Philippine University to accommodate walk-in vaccinees. With the massive vaccination drive, Conlu said the city government is optimistic that the target of fully vaccinating 50% of the eligible population before the end of this month will be achieved. The Department of Justice said the Commission on Audit has the power to look into the financial books of the Philippine Red Cross. Justice Secretary Minardo Guevara said that the PRC is an entity that receives subsidies or equity from the government. Guevara said under the Constitution, the COA has the power to examine on a post-audit basis all accounts pertaining to the expenditure or use of funds by any non-governmental entity receiving subsidy or equity, directly or indirectly, from or through the government. President Rodrigo Duterte earlier called for an audit of the PRC headed by Senator Richard Gordon. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said COA can look into the PRC's Memorandum of Agreement with Metro Manila mayors for the COVID-19 testing, as well as its MOA to get advance payment of 100 million pesos from PhilHealth for testing service. Roque said the advance payment clause under the MOA violates the PRC Charter and Republic Act 11469 or the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act, which states that only reimbursement is allowed. Roque also questioned the PRC's move to impose a rate of 3,500 pesos per COVID-19 test even if the machines used for the testing are donated. Still to come, the country's vaccine czar says the country will not deal with dubious consolidators in having multi-party pacts on COVID-19 jobs. And another big drug haul, this time in Cavite, yields 1.5 billion worth of shabu. Details ahead, this is the PNA Newsroom.
The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly changed our lives for the worse. Lives and jobs were lost and economies reached a meltdown. Thanks to the arrival of safe and effective vaccines, we are one step closer to normalcy. It's time to do our part, get vaccinated for our safety and for our recovery.
You are there in that community, go there and have yourself vaccinated by any of the vaccines available. They are all potent, they are all effective.
I would like to appeal to all our kababayans, please get vaccinated against COVID-19 and be the government partner in preventing further spread of the disease. I encourage you to get vaccinated as soon as possible time. These vaccines are safe and they are the key to reopening our society. The need for international solidarity and cooperation cannot be made clearer than this pandemic, because everyone is safe. No one is safe globally until everybody is safe.
Vaccines work.
Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said multi-party agreements or MPA were put on hold due to the questionable deals made by third-party consolidators. The details from William Theo.
Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez said the National Task Force needed to be prudent on securing and entering into agreements. During the hearing of the House Committee on Economic Affairs, Galvez stressed that he cannot sign an agreement without the indicative delivery dates. This after consolidators, particularly for the procurement of Covaxin of Bharat Biotech, did not include the National Task Force in their negotiations and requested LGUs for advance payments for overpriced vaccines that have no definite nor indicative delivery dates. He also pointed out that the average cost of vaccines procured by the national government is $10 per dose, while the price offered by those acting as consolidators of LGUs for Covaxin cost $18 per dose. Galvez also said that the Indian government currently banned the exportation of its COVID-19 vaccines due to the surge of cases in their country. He urges the local government units not to make any payment if there is no signature of the NTF in the contract.
Deputy Speaker Eddie Villanueva has urged the government to strengthen its information dissemination on its policy of setting a lowered price cap on RT-PCR testing. Villanueva said intensifying information dissemination would address concerns regarding persisting overpricing of RT-PCR testing. The DOH released a circular stating that plate-based RT-PCR should only now cost 2,800 pesos in public health facilities and 3,360 in private service providers. Cartridge-based testing should only now amount to a maximum of 2,450 and 2,940 pesos in public and private service providers, respectively. Private testing centers can charge only up to 20% of the price as allowable markup. A 1,000 peso price cap on home service fee is also imposed, and senior citizens and persons with disability discounts are applicable. Meanwhile, Albay Representative Joey Salceda called on the Interagency Task Force to increase testing to 150,000 per day over the next few weeks as the Delta variant of COVID-19 ravages various parts of the country. 99 children at the Gentle Hands Orphanage in Barangay Bagong Buhay in Quezon City have tested positive for COVID-19. A total of 122 people in the orphanage were found infected by health officials. The QZ Epidemiology and Surveillance Unit said 3 male staff allegedly went out of the orphanage to get their first dose of COVID-19 vaccine last August 13. After 6 days, one of the children developed symptoms. This was contrary to an initial report that an asymptomatic adult allegedly visited the orphanage and unknowingly brought the virus. The CESU said that 5 are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 while 19 received only the first dose. Mayor Joy Belmonte meanwhile ordered the CESU to conduct active surveillance of all the other closed-setting facilities in the city, such as nursing homes. Belmonte reiterated her call to strictly follow minimum health and safety protocols amid the spread of the highly transmissible Delta variant. COVID-19 cases continue to increase in the Bicol region, with the Delta variant tallying the most number of infections. Health officials reported surge of cases with an average of 300 cases a day. More on this from Chris Mundo.
The Department of Health has expressed concern over the increasing number of Delta cases among the COVID-19 variants of concern, or VOC, in Bicol region. DOH Region 5 said the region logged an additional 28 VOC cases, 19 of which are Delta variant, followed by Beta with 5 cases and Alpha with 4 cases. These brought the number of VOC cases in the region to 134 as of September 6. Bicol is also experiencing a surge in COVID cases with an average of 300 cases a day. Meanwhile, some hospitals in the region are almost at full capacity. Data from the agency show that of the 1,030 beds allocated for COVID-19 patients, 330 or 32% are already occupied. The agency has renewed its call to the public to follow the minimum public health standards, which are still the best preventive measures against all variants and mutations of COVID-19. In Cebu City, Oplan Puyo, or stay at home, will continue despite the city's shift to general community quarantine. Acting Mayor Michael Rama said stakeholders recommended a gradual transition in easing restrictions despite the imposition of the less strict GCQ and the downtrend in COVID-19 infections. Rama reiterated the need to educate residents on the importance of staying at home to prevent further spread of the coronavirus, especially the more transmissible Delta variant. Meanwhile, the city government of Baguio has ordered a liquor ban starting this weekend as part of continuing efforts to curb the surge in COVID-19 cases. From September 11 to 19, a total ban on the sale and serving of liquor and other alcoholic beverages will be in effect, while indoor dine-in services are allowed to operate at 30% capacity. Meanwhile, worship services are allowed at 20% seating capacity from September 11 to 26. Baguio City recorded 1,238 cases in 7 days, with the highest single-day record of 231 cases on Wednesday. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Mundo.
Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. has invited the United States ASEAN Business Council to resume business missions to the Philippines to help jumpstart the economy. The top diplomat said investments to the Philippines will effectively support the country's post-pandemic recovery efforts. For his part, USABC President and CEO Ted Osius noted that there is huge potential for growth in Southeast Asia, with U.S. companies looking at opportunities for diversification. The Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. said Manila remains open to opportunities for collaboration in energy, manufacturing, telecommunications, information technology, and business process management, all with an eye towards sustainability. Locsin met with Osius on Thursday during his working visit to the U.S. to mark the two nations' 75 years of diplomatic relations. The two further discussed ways to expand the 3-decade-old partnership between the Philippines and the USABC. 2 drug suspects were killed while 2 others were arrested in separate operations in Cavite that yielded around 1.5 billion pesos worth of shabu on Thursday evening. Suspects Bashir Bangon and Danilo Untavar were killed during the buy-bust operation at Springville Executive 1, Barangay Molino 3, Bacoor City. Authorities seized 181 kilograms of shabu worth around 1.25 billion pesos. Bangon is a top-level drug personality with direct contact with a Chinese drug syndicate and is mainly operating around Visayas and Mindanao. Meanwhile, suspects Lani Micoleta and Aldwin Micoleta were arrested in Barangay Magdalo, Bahayang Pag-asa, Imus City. The suspects yielded about 48 kilos of shabu. The two are cohorts of Basher and Bangon and are known distributors of illegal drugs in Metro Manila and Calabarzon. They will be charged with violation of Republic Act 9165 or the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002. Up next, Typhoon Julina exits the country but not after leaving close to 300 million pesos worth of agricultural and infrastructure damage. And the reopening of a top resort hotel in Bacolod is seen to aid in tourism recovery. Back after a quick break, stay with the PNA Newsroom. You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. The League of Cities of the Philippines, or LCP, called on President Rodrigo Duterte to extend the declaration of the state of calamity in the country until June 30, 2022 due to the COVID-19 crisis. In a letter sent by National LCP President Bacolod City Mayor Evelio Leonardia, the League said extending the state of calamity will ensure that cities can respond to the threats of COVID-19 and facilitate economic recovery. Leonardia noted that the authority of LGUs to use local funds and other resources to respond to the threat of COVID-19 depends on the continuing existence of a state of calamity. He assured Duterte that city mayors are committed to working closely with the government to overcome the pandemic. In March last year, Duterte signed a Proclamation 929 that placed the entire Philippines under a state of calamity due to the health crisis. Proclamation 1021 extended the state of calamity from September 13, 2020 to September 12, 2021. Typhoon Julina has so far left 286 million pesos worth of damage to agriculture and infrastructure as it swept through parts of Luzon and the Visayas. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council said damage to agriculture as of Friday was estimated at 256 million pesos in Mimaropa, Bicol, and Western and Eastern Visayas. Infrastructure damage was placed at 30 million in Mimaropa, Bicol, and Western Visayas. Over 6,400 houses were damaged. Meanwhile, over 28,000 families have so far been affected by the typhoon in Central Luzon, Mimaropa, Bicol, Western Visayas, Eastern Visayas, Soxargen, and the National Capital Region. About 2,500 families are staying in 245 evacuation centers. One was confirmed dead, along with 16 injured and 4 missing. The Department of Social Welfare and Development is set to distribute over 10,000 family food packs to victims of Typhoon Julina in eastern Visayas. The production of food packs is ongoing as the DSWD activated its quick response team tasked to monitor the typhoon's impact in Leyte and Samar. The bulk of the food pack is stored at the DSWD Regional Resource Operations Center warehouse in Palo, Leyte. Each food pack consists of rice, canned goods, and coffee packed in a small box for one family. The DSW said it is stepping up coordination with local government units to gather critical information regarding the effect of Typhoon Julina as it prepares to assist evacuation centers and provide relief. Government troops recovered high-powered firearms in a series of encounters with Communist New People's Army rebels in Agusan del Norte. The Army's 23rd Infantry Battalion said encounters took place in Sitio Palo 2, Barangay Hagimitan, Nasipit on September 4 and Sitio Manawang, Barangay Ginabsan, Buena Vista Town on September 6. The troops engaged about 15 NPA rebels belonging to the dismantled guerrilla front of 4A of the North Central Mindanao Regional Committee. Among the items the terrorists yielded were 3 AK-47 rifles, 2 M203 grenade launchers, and 1 anti-personnel mine. Residents have complained the rebels were involved in extortion and seizing of farm products. Battalion Commander Lieutenant Colonel Julius Cesar Paulo called on remaining NPA rebels in the area to surrender and avail of the programs and services of the government. A popular resort hotel in Bacolod City has reopened after more than a year in a bid to boost domestic tourism amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Resorts Negrense, located in the coastal village of Punta Taytay, has resumed accepting dining reservations and room bookings on Thursday. Resort owner and sugarcane industry leader Enrique Rojas said Resorts Negrense will hire more workers once other amenities are open to the public. Rojas added that they want to help kickstart the local economy that suffered a major slump due to the global health crisis. Negros Occidental Tourism Officer Jenny Lind Cordero meanwhile urged other resort hotels to come up with new programs to cope with the challenges experienced by the tourism industry. Bacolod is under general community quarantine with heightened restrictions until the end of September. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. Recalibrating response. The IATF provisionally approves the guidelines on the pilot implementation of alert level systems ahead of possible shift to granular lockdowns in Metro Manila. More doses of hopes. The Philippines gets another 502,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine. Majority of the vaccines will be administered to economic frontliners. Authorities seize over 1.5 billion worth of shabu in Cavite, just days after this year's biggest drug haul so far, amounting to over 4 billion pesos in central Luzon. And Typhoon Julina leaves over 280 million pesos worth of damage to infrastructure and agriculture after drenching parts of Luzon and the Visayas. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. We tell stories that inspire change. I'm Marita Muaje. Stay safe and have a good day.